today we are wading directly into a massive geopolitical and cultural flashpoint, the global firewall fight centered on TikTok.
I mean, if you followed the congressional grilling of CEO Shouzi Chu, you saw the pressure cooker environment.
Oh, absolutely. We're trying to balance phenomenal innovation and cultural connection against, well, these profound concerns over national security, data privacy, and youth safety.
Exactly. Our mission today is to sift through the stack of documents you provided, a blend of corporate statements, legislative reports, unedited hearing transcripts, and legal analysis to extract the undisputed facts.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of it.
We need to know who really controls TikTok, what this $1.5 billion security plan, the infamous Project Texas, actually involves, and whether the deeply troubling safety allegations about the app's impact on American users hold up under scrutiny.
And we absolutely have to start by acknowledging the sheer scale of the issue.
The scale is everything.
Because that scale dictates the policy response. The source material emphasizes repeatedly that TikTok claims over 150 million American users. I mean, when you factor in the youth demographic, this platform is deeply embedded in American life.
It's used by 2/3 of all American teenagers. That's staggering.
It is. So when policymakers talk about banning or regulating this app, they are impacting the digital lives of nearly half the country.
It's not just a social media app anymore. It's basically infrastructure now.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in with Section 1, the man in the machine. Shouzi Chu and the ByteDance connection.
Good place to start.
The entire premise of TikTok's defense hinges on the independence of its leadership.
That's right. Chu was the focal point of that hearing, and his personal background was clearly, designed to establish his autonomy and his international credentials.
Right.
The sources detail that he was born in Singapore in 1982, served in Singapore's military, attended college in the UK, and earned his business degree right here in the US.
So the articles frame his journey as this fascinating tale of ambition and perseverance to the top of what is, arguably the world's fastest growing global platform.
Mm-hmm.
And structurally, his defense is pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
He is Singaporean, his parents are Singaporean, he's a global executive, which all means he is independent of the Chinese Communist Party.
But this is precisely where the corporate structure debate becomes incredibly contentious.
This is the heart of the matter.
It is. Chu's defense was that ByteDance, the parent company, is a private entity. He kept saying that 60% of it is owned by global investors and that 3 out of the 5 board members of ByteDance are Americans.
And he reports to the CEO of ByteDance, Mr. Rubo, not to someone in Beijing.
He stressed that. But the congressional counterargument was, well, it was relentless.
Yeah. The transcripts reveal that members of Congress, supported by these legislative reports, they were quick to dispute the notion that ByteDance is purely private.
They basically argued that it's a technological tool or even a weapon for China's strategic gain, and it doesn't matter where its CDO was born.
Okay, so how do they make that connection? What's the mechanism for control?
The primary mechanism cited for this alleged control is what's known as the golden share.
The golden share, okay.
This is a crucial concept. It's not about outright majority ownership, which would be 51%. It is about strategic government-mandated influence.
So a small stake with big power.
A huge amount of power. Specifically, a PRC government-run fund called the China Internet Investment Fund, or CIF, acquired a tiny 1% stake in Beijing Douyin.
Now, Beijing Douyin is important because that is the entity that owns TikTok's core technology and operational license in China.
Exactly. And the CIF itself is capitalized by both the Cyberspace Administration of China, the PRC's powerful internet regulator, and the Ministry of Finance.
So you have the government's money directly funding this stake.
And that 1% stake, the golden share, came with a specific privileged mechanism, a board seat on Beijing Douyin.
A board seat.
And they used that seat to appoint a CAC official, a government official named Ru Shugang, directly to the board.
So if I'm the listener, help me unpack what a golden share actually means in practice. It sounds like a disproportionate amount of power for such a tiny stake.
It is, and it's a standard corporate tool used by the Chinese government to ensure key technology and media companies align with state interests.
So it's a known playbook.
It is. You can think of it as a golden veto on major decisions. Even if global investors own 60% of ByteDance, the underlying core technology entity, Beijing Douyin, has a literal government official on its board with the mandate to enforce compliance with Chinese law.
And that official isn't there to maximize profit.
No, not at all. They are there to ensure political adherence.
And that adherence leads directly to the next point,
Yeah.
the PRC's own laws. because Chu can emphasize ByteDance's incorporation in the Cayman Islands all he wants, but PRC officials themselves have referred to ByteDance as a PRC company.
They do, and they consistently cite the company's compliance obligations under China's laws, specifically the 2017 cybersecurity law and the 2021 data security law.
And those laws are pretty explicit.
They are. They compel companies operating in China to cooperate with intelligence agencies, and they restrict data export. This legal reality creates a direct and immediate contradiction to Chu's narrative of complete political autonomy for TikTok.
That structural contradiction was amplified by an extremely significant political move cited during the hearing.
Yes.
China's commerce minister publicly stated that China opposes the sale or spin-off of TikTok
And the reason given was highly specific.
because it involves exporting China's technology, and therefore it requires Chinese government approval.
This was a critical point for Congress. I mean, a huge point. When he was questioned about this, Chu said he couldn't speak on behalf of the Chinese government official, but he maintained that Project Texas was designed to proceed regardless of China's opposition.
But the implication there is just devastating for his argument.
Absolutely. For Congress, the political implication was, if Beijing views the core AI and source code as Chinese state technology requiring export approval, then ByteDance is not truly independent. It's an asset of the state.
So the core allegation just boiled down to the structural and political reality. It was summed up by one statement in the source material. The platform is controlled by its Beijing communist-based parent company, ByteDance, and that this threatens American privacy and security.
Right. And the sources show there is a fundamental philosophical difference here.
How so?
Chu sees a global private entity operating under common corporate laws. Congress sees a state tool subject to foreign law operating in a sensitive sector.
And since the U.S. government found that structural risk unacceptable, ByteDance had to create a solution.
Exactly. And this is a perfect segue into Section 2. Project Texas, the firewall, and the $1.5 billion question. Because Project Texas is TikTok's direct, massive, and very expensive response to those allegations of foreign control and security risk.
It's presented as an unprecedented effort in the industry.
Unprecedented indeed.
They're sinking $1.5 billion into this plan, essentially trying to build a digital fortress. Walk us through the mechanics of what Project Texas is supposed to accomplish according to TikTok's corporate commitments.
Well, there are 3 core pillars, and they're designed to create this ring-fenced environment monitored by third parties.
Okay.
First, total data localization. All U.S. user data generated is stored exclusively on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel.
And the actual data traffic.
The actual data traffic is migrated entirely to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, which is based in the U.S.
So the data literally lives in Texas on Oracle servers. They're attempting to bring it entirely out of the reach of Chinese law.
Precisely. Second, they created a new, dedicated U.S.-based entity called TikTok U.S. Data Security, or USDS.
Okay, USDS.
This is the entity managing the localization, the firewalling efforts, and the American personnel in charge of security.
And a third pillar.
Third, the plan mandates source code transparency. USDS establishes a transparency center where Oracle and other third-party validators can review and validate TikTok's source code and its recommendation engine.
And the goal there is to ensure its integrity and, critically, freedom from foreign manipulation.
That's the idea. Chu stressed that they have seen no evidence of Chinese access, and he committed to 4 key principles, including transparency and non-influence by any government.
It sounds incredibly robust on paper. A technical solution to a geopolitical problem.
It does.
But the congressional scrutiny immediately targeted the technical weak points.
It did. The central technical vulnerability, according to members of Congress, is whether Project Texas actually solves the problem of internal access by ByteDance employees who reside in China.
Right, so it's not just about where the data sits.
Exactly. It doesn't solve who has the keys to access or manipulate it.
And this led to that famously evasive moment in the transcript, didn't it?
Yes. He was asked directly if any ByteDance employees in China, including engineers, currently have access to U.S. user data.
And he wouldn't give a straight answer.
He refused to provide a simple yes or no, calling it a complex topic, though he maintained that access is controlled by American personnel within the USDS team.
So what's the complexity there?
The complexity, as the source material unpacks, is due to the nature of modern global software development. I mean, even if the U.S. data is localized, the engineers in Beijing who write the core algorithms and maintain the underlying infrastructure still need access to the platform.
To fix bugs, optimize performance, deploy updates.
Right. And if those engineers are subject to PRC law, the firewall is, well, it's moot.
Yeah, that makes structural sense. And Chu even admitted that TikTok and ByteDance share resources on some services and have interconnected IT systems. So the concern remains. The engineers building the core functions are still under Beijing's jurisdiction, regardless of where the servers are geographically located.
Exactly. And this leads directly to the question of auditing the code itself.
Right, the transparency part.
A congressman questioned the feasibility of Oracle engineers reviewing the entire code base. They estimated the code base is significant, potentially running into tens of millions of lines of code.
That is an immense, continuous task, not a one-time audit.
It's not.
So help me understand why reviewing the code isn't enough. I mean, if Oracle is looking at the lines of code and checking for backdoors, why did the technical experts still express such deep skepticism?
Because the technical critique went deeper than just lines of code. It went to the heart of modern artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Okay.
The critic argued that the sensitive part, the secret sauce, isn't just the code's architecture. It's the training data and the predicted outcomes you ask the algorithm to generate.
So even if the code looks clean, if the inputs, the training data used to refine the algorithm are manipulated, or if the desired outputs are secretly skewed, the manipulation happens outside the view of the code auditor.
Precisely. You could have a perfectly clean algorithm, but if you train it using a biased or politically curated data set, or if you apply weights that subtly favor certain outcomes, say suppressing protest movements or promoting state-approved narratives, how do you confirm that?
How do you verify the ongoing manipulation of the secret sauce in real time?
You can't, really. Chu argued that third-party monitoring could identify the motivation of the code and the weights of the training, but the skepticism remained profound.
And if we look backward, the evidence of stalling on security issues certainly didn't help their case.
Not at all.
Chu admitted that TikTok attorneys stated the company planned to start deleting non-public historical U.S. user data in March 2023, with a target completion date by the end of that year.
And critics argued that this long delay, starting the deletion only when the committee started asking pointed questions, suggested that the company had been stalling for years.
Right, despite long-standing security concerns raised by the U.S. government. If a company truly prioritizes security, why was this sensitive historical data allowed to just linger on potentially insecure systems until Congress forced the issue?
That timing certainly looks like the company was trying to buy time.
Finally, Project Texas introduces an extraordinary corporate governance burden. We should dedicate some time to this.
We should.
It requires continual oversight and monitoring by the U.S. government through CFIUS.
Right, CFIUS, which is the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. And traditionally, CFIUS just reviews transactions like mergers or acquisitions that could impact national security.
Their job is usually to say yes, no, or yes, but with these conditions.
Exactly.
But Project Texas is different. It means CFIUS isn't just reviewing a transaction, it's overseeing the ongoing operation of a private company. It's basically acting as an internal regulator.
Exactly, and the requirements are immense. CFIUS has to approve the new USDS subsidiaries' board members, specify strict hiring requirements for key personnel, and maintain continuous real-time interaction with Oracle regarding the source code audits.
Critics view this unprecedented integration of the U.S. government with a private company as a massive drain on significant federal resources.
Especially since CFIUS's workload is already dramatically increased by global geopolitical tension.
It sets a concerning precedent. It says that because we lack comprehensive data privacy law in the U.S., we are forced to invent an expensive, ad hoc, government-centric structure to police data flow.
A security theater with a $1.5 billion price tag.
And that security theater is necessary because the stakes here aren't just about corporate structure or server location. They bleed directly into the mental and physical health of users.
Let's shift our focus to Section 3, the human toll, addiction, safety, and content moderation failures. This segment of the hearing was easily the most emotionally charged.
It was visceral. Critics described TikTok's algorithm as profoundly addictive, designed to predict with uncanny accuracy which videos keep users scrolling, even if that content feeds destructive behavior.
It's an attention extraction machine.
Yeah.
And the source material is explicit about the damage. 2/3 of American teenagers use the platform, and the endless scroll feature is accused of intensifying harm. There were devastating allegations related to the mental health crisis.
Supported by research cited during the hearing.
Yes, that research claimed the algorithm actively recommends videos to teens that create and exacerbate feelings of emotional distress. It specifically mentioned content promoting suicide, self-harm, and eating disorders.
So it's not just that the content exists on the platform.
No, it's that the algorithm seeks out vulnerable users and pushes it directly to them.
And that leads to the specific tragic anecdotes that brought the abstract risks into sharp focus.
The case of Chase Naska, a 16-year-old boy, was brought up by a congressman. His parents were there in the room.
I remember seeing that.
They alleged that Chase's For You page, his personalized feed, became a window to discover suicide, and that it ultimately led to his death.
And that connects directly to the blackout challenge, also known as the choking challenge. This was cited as dangerous content that TikTok allegedly actively pushed through its recommendation engine,
resulting in the deaths of children.
Chu was asked point blank if promoting that content constituted good faith moderation.
It's a powerful question because it touches on the liability shield of Section 230, which we can get back to later. But fundamentally, it asks if a company can claim to be a neutral platform when its own design choices accelerate harm.
So what was his defense?
Chu's defense was that he takes mental health seriously. He claimed that if a user searches for suicidal phrases like, "I want to die," they are immediately redirected to a safety page.
Okay.
He also noted that TikTok relies on external third parties for mental health research, and that the platform tries to disperse extreme content like extreme fitness videos or diet culture content, so younger users don't see it too regularly.
But those efforts seem, insufficient when directly contrasted with the deaths cited in the hearing.
They do, and the moderation failures went beyond just mental health. The platform was criticized as an illegal marketplace for drugs, including fentanyl.
I saw that. Law enforcement sources reportedly found getting drugs on the platform nearly as convenient as ordering a pizza.
With posts racking up hundreds of thousands of views. And TikTok's efforts to combat this were characterized by critics as token efforts.
Right. They donated a small amount in ad credits and redirected obvious hashtags like #drugs to community resources.
But the source material highlights that drug dealers easily bypass this by using emojis and coded slang in their communication, rendering the moderation efforts pretty much ineffective in practice.
Then you have just the basic security failures.
Yeah.
The committee chair raised a video directly threatening her that remained online for 41 days.
41 days. Chu called this unacceptable, but he could only commit to looking into it after the fact.
Which prompted the pointed question. Does it take literally an act of Congress to get you to remove content that threatens members of Congress?
A fair question.
And we can't overlook the misinformation issue. Studies cited found that nearly 30% of videos under the #coronavirus hashtag contain misinformation, often viewed millions of times.
Which raises serious public health concerns and is a key area where critics allege the platform is manipulated.
This is where the debate over disparate treatment between the U.S. and China became central. Congressman asked a powerful, challenging question. Why does dangerous content like drug sales or the blackout challenge seem to be easily prevented on Douyin, the Chinese version of the app, but not on TikTok?
That's the critical point. If ByteDance, the parent company, has the core AI capability to filter harmful content efficiently in China, why don't they deploy that same rigor for U.S. teenagers?
So what was Chu's response to that?
It was highly technical and defensive. He argued that moderation effectiveness depends on local laws, citing Singapore's strict drug laws as an example for why drug content is absent there.
And he suggested TikTok's experience should only be compared to other U.S. companies.
Yes, like Facebook or Instagram, which also struggle with these issues.
But wait, if that's true, if American competitors also struggle with fentanyl and self-harm content, then why is the U.S. government moving to ban only TikTok?
Exactly.
Isn't the congressional frustration precisely that the capability to stop it exists within the ByteDance ecosystem, proven by Douyin, but the will to apply it fully in the U.S. does not?
That is precisely the congressional frustration laid out in the sources. The belief is that the differing standards reflect a prioritization, protecting Chinese citizens from algorithmic harm through strict Douyin moderation, while accepting a lower, more profitable safety bar for American citizens.
And Chu just rejected that interpretation.
He did. He maintained that the platform is trying to raise the safety bar across the board.
In terms of child protections, Chu did highlight several firsts for the social media industry. trying to demonstrate proactive steps.
He mentioned forbidding direct messaging for under 16s, setting accounts for under 16s to private by default, and a 60-minute watch time by default for under 18s.
But even these measures were challenged immediately. The sources show they are trivially easy to bypass.
Yeah, congressmen stated their own children easily bypassed or ignored the 60-minute notification.
Or they could access features like live streams and virtual gifts, which Chu claimed were shut off for under 18s.
Right. The efficacy of these firsts appears highly questionable in practice, undermining the company's commitment to safety.
The sources also acknowledged the positive side, which Chu emphasized heavily.
He did. The success of Book Talk, the dedicated STEM educational video feed, which he cited as having 116 billion views.
And its role in cultural community building. But for the members of the committee, these positive aspects were massively overshadowed by the specific life-threatening safety and security risks that the platform had failed to address effectively.
That tension brings us directly to Section 4, the data mine and the legislative showdown. Because even if TikTok solved every single safety issue, the core threat, the national security risk of foreign data collection and potential surveillance, it remains.
Right. Critics argue that TikTok's data collection goes far beyond standard business purposes and represents a massive surveillance risk.
Yeah.
They aren't just collecting video preferences.
No, not at all. Allegations were raised that TikTok trackers are embedded in 93 sites across the web, essentially surveilling Americans even if they have never used the app itself.
This implies an economy built not just on engagement, but on comprehensive surveillance.
Yes. The accusation is that TikTok is gathering massive amounts of private information, including location and health data that they use for algorithmic inferences, which, regardless of ownership, is a significant privacy violation.
Chu denied collecting more data than any other social media company and denied selling data to data brokers.
He did, however, when pressed on commitments, he declined to promise he wouldn't gather location or health data without affirmative consent.
That refusal speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It does. His reasoning was that this type of data collection is common among many other companies in the industry. Again, he's just deferring to existing, often insufficient industry standards.
And he also refused to disclose what publicly available data TikTok collects and adds to user profiles.
Information that could be used for intelligence or profiling operations.
And the sources confirmed the real-world precedent for this risk. TikTok spied on American journalists.
Yes. This led to intense questioning about whether similar surveillance techniques could be used against other Americans, like government officials or military personnel.
And he wouldn't say it was impossible.
He declined to say with 100% certainty that they couldn't, only offering a commitment not to be influenced by any government.
A commitment which, structurally, Congress felt was unenforceable given the existence of the Golden Share and PRC intelligence laws.
And that leads directly to the censorship and propaganda threat. The fear is that the CCP could use this platform to manipulate public opinion, influence foreign policy, and, undermine democratic elections.
A damning report was cited showing that 90% of election disinformation ads tested, including ads encouraging people to vote twice, went undetected on TikTok.
That's a huge failure.
If the company cannot even stop transparently illegal and dangerous electoral misinformation, how can we trust them to resist subtle state-sponsored propaganda?
And Chu denied removing or promoting content at the request of the Chinese government. He also rejected the claims that they could promote pro-CCP messages or acts of aggression against Taiwan.
What?
But the FBI director was cited elsewhere in the source material as warning that the CCP could have the capability to manipulate data and recommendation engines regardless of Chu's personal commitments.
So this intense scrutiny and lack of trust ultimately drove the legislative response.
Yep.
If Project Texas was deemed insufficient, the only path left was to force a change of ownership. Which brings us to the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act, or PFACA.
This law is the legal endgame. It expressly names TikTok as a foreign adversary-controlled application, and it requires ByteDance to execute a qualified divestiture.
A complete sale to a U.S.-based buyer.
Within 9 months, or face a nationwide ban. This is a profound exercise of national security power over a globally successful private enterprise.
But TikTok didn't accept this lying down. They mounted a ferocious First Amendment challenge, arguing the ban was an unconstitutional act of prior restraint on speech.
They did.
What was the core of their legal argument, and why did it ultimately fail?
Well, the First Amendment argument was strong, citing precedents that restrict the government's ability to regulate content or restrict media outlets. TikTok argued that banning the platform, even because of its ownership, restricts the speech of its 150 million American users.
And this is where the legal analysis becomes crucial.
It is.
That challenge went all the way up, didn't it?
It did. The sources confirm that the Supreme Court ultimately upheld the ban in January 2025 in a landmark 9-0 decision in TikTok Inc. v. Garland.
Wow.
The court determined that the ban did not violate the platform's First Amendment rights, effectively paving the way for the forced divestiture or shutdown.
A 9-0 decision on something this charged is rare. What was the central legal rationale used to overcome the powerful First Amendment argument?
The court's reasoning focused intensely on the word adversary. The court determined that the PFACA law was not regulating content. It wasn't telling TikTok what videos it could or couldn't show.
Okay.
Instead, the law was regulating the source of the influence, targeting the ownership structure of a company deemed controlled by a foreign adversary nation, the PRC.
So if the government bans a newspaper because it prints false information, that's a First Amendment violation.
Yeah.
But if the government mandates the sale of a media company because it is owned by a hostile foreign government that could compel it to commit surveillance.
That's a national security matter, not a content restriction.
I see.
Precisely. The court distinguished the national security interests from traditional free speech protection. They essentially said, the U.S. government has a compelling interest in preventing a hostile foreign power from controlling a critical communication platform and using it for espionage or influence campaigns.
That ruling sets a monumental precedent.
It really does. It affirms the government's ability to force the sale of a communication platform based on the identity of its owner when clear national security threats are established through legislative record.
And before that final resolution, Congress also revisited Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act.
Right. Members argued that this liability shield, which protects platforms from legal responsibility for the content they distribute, was never intended to shield companies like TikTok from amplifying dangerous, life-threatening content, citing the blackout challenge specifically.
The argument being that Section 230 protects passive publishers, but platforms that use sophisticated targeted algorithms to actively push harmful content to vulnerable users are not passive.
They're active creators and distributors of harm and should lose that immunity. Chu, while agreeing that companies should raise the safety bar, still maintained that Section 230 is vital for freedom of expression on the internet.
This highlights a critical, lingering tension, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Platforms want the benefits of non-liability while refusing to take full responsibility for the algorithmic choices that amplify harm.
Whether that platform is TikTok, Facebook, or any other.
And stepping back, the sources suggest that this entire dramatic evident Project Texas, the divestiture attempts, the bans, highlights a much broader failure.
Yes.
The lack of comprehensive, effective data privacy legislation in the United States.
Absolutely. The U.S. is currently creating an ad hoc data governance regime, relying on extraordinary measures like Project Texas and CFI U.S. oversight to restrict sensitive American data from reaching adversaries.
Executive Order 14117 reinforces this. We're trying to create temporary data dams instead of building a robust foundational national law that sets the standard for all companies, foreign or domestic.
And it puts the U.S. government in this unprecedented position of having to spend $1.5 billion and dedicate immense federal resources to audit the internal code and governance of a private company.
Simply because there isn't a clear national standard on what data can be collected, stored, and critically, what algorithmic outcomes are deemed acceptable in the first place.
And the problem goes back to the initial critique of Project Texas.
Right.
Even the most ironclad technical solution cannot completely eliminate political risk when fundamental laws, like China's intelligence obligations and the political leverage of the golden share, are in play.
So to sum this all up,
the deep dive confirms the central persistent tension. TikTok's CEO offered unprecedented transparency and commitment through Project Texas, insisting on the platform's global autonomous identity and citing its positive cultural impact, book talks, STEM videos, and youth community.
However, the majority of U.S. lawmakers remain profoundly unconvinced. Their skepticism was fueled by evasive answers regarding ByteDance employee access in China, the technical impracticality of auditing massive, complex AI code, and training data.
And undeniable, specific instances of safety risks and moderation failures, such as the promotion of deadly challenges and the persistent presence of illegal drug sales.
The company's structural ties to the PRC, specifically that golden share and China's opposition to technology export, constantly undermine Chu's commitments to keep the platform free from government manipulation.
So the commitment to protect U.S. data, despite the massive investment, was consistently challenged by the technical interconnectedness of the systems and the complexity of modern data surveillance.
Ultimately, the American solution was legislative, culminating in the PAFICO divest or ban law, which was decisively upheld by the Supreme Court based on national security rationale.
The fate of TikTok is sealed unless ByteDance finds a qualified buyer, a process severely complicated by Beijing's stated opposition to exporting the underlying technology and AI capability.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question for you, the listener. The congressional record is packed with testimonies not just from Chu, but from former executives of big tech companies, demonstrating a consistent pattern. Social media companies are deeply aware of algorithmic harm, addictive features, and data misuse.
Yeah, we've seen failures like Cambridge Analytica and the internal documents demonstrating that Meta knew Instagram was exacerbating eating disorders in teen girls. The core surveillance and addictive algorithms that exploit human vulnerability are, as the sources imply, a much broader issue than TikTok in China.
So given that context, where massive data collection and addictive design are the industry standard, regardless of ownership, the question is not simply whether TikTok can be fully separated from Beijing.
The question is whether any social media platform, whether it's run from Menlo Park or Beijing, can truly be trusted with the vast power they wield over public opinion and youth mental health without robust, comprehensive, and effective data privacy and algorithmic transparency legislation already in place.
And until then, the U.S. government will be forced to create one expensive ad hoc firewall after another, draining federal resources and reacting to crises instead of preventing them.
A critical thought to ponder as we watch the future of big tech unfold and the global firewall wars continue.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.